for where I am currently. Hey, welcome to Gold Creek. I am stoked that you guys are here. My name is Josiah. I'm the campus pastor. If you don't know me, that would be embarrassing because I know all of you. So I've done a bad job in your life, and I apologize if you don't know me. Hey, before I get into anything related to the screen and our series this week, I have to say this. As we sing about God being good, and as John shares about some of the tragedies and potential tragedies that have come this week, I feel like I need to speak into this because sometimes we sing that song and we disengage that from what's happening in the world, and we have to bring those together. God is good, and yes, those things still happen, and we mourn and we grieve. And our hearts are heavy for the families affected. And even though that's going on, we still believe God is good. That song in particular it's a hard one to sing sometimes. It's hard to sing sometimes. In fact, I would go so far as to say, even with what we're talking about today, the movie Lady Bird, it's hard to sing that song when we have children who are running. And yet, it's still so true. At the end of the first service, when we were singing that, my wife and I were in the back, and tears are streaming down her face, and my heart is heavy. But yet, we're going to sing, God is good. You are good. You are good. You are good. That really doesn't have much to say when it comes to what we're talking about, but at the same time, I want to say that even though it's heavy, even though it's hard, even though it's difficult, even though tragedy befalls us constantly and people fail us, God is good. With that, today we're talking about this movie, Lady Bird. So if you don't know, we're doing this series, Watching Oscar, where we pay attention to what the world is paying attention to. We watch the movies that are up, 4 of the 6, I think it is, movies that are nominated for Picture of the Year, and we watch clips, we dissect the message, and then we apply the Bible to it. And sometimes it affirms what the Bible is saying, and sometimes it's the polar opposite. And this week, the Bible speaks into the situation. And so as we watch this movie, what I want you to do is, as we watch the clips, rather, I want you to put yourself in this. Find who you identify with. The movie is the story of this young girl. She's a high school senior, 17, turning 18, and she's struggling with her identity. She goes by the name Lady Bird, and at one point she's trying out for a play, and they're like, they ask her name, and she's like, I'm Lady Bird. Is that your given name? She says, yes, I gave it to myself. That's the kind of girl she is, just very individualistic. Some people would say rebellious. Some people would say, no, she's just trying to find her own way. Whatever it is, she is trying to find her identity. And it works itself out in her relationship, specifically that with her relationship with her mom. And she is at odds with her throughout the whole movie. In fact, much of the movie is dealing with the conflict between their relationship. So let's check out this first clip. It's the very first scene of the movie, and it just sets it up well for us. So check this out.
By the way, let's just sit with what we heard.
Are you serious?
We don't have to constantly be entertaining ourselves, do we?
I wish I could live through something.
Aren't you?
Nope. The only exciting thing about 2002 is that it's a palindrome.
Okay, fine. Well, yours is the worst life of all, so you win.
Oh, so now you're mad?
No, it's
because
just
I
being
wanted
ridiculous
to
because you have a great life.
I'm sorry, I'm not perfect.
No one's asking you to be perfect. Just consider it or do.
I don't even want to go to school in this state anyway. I hate California. I want to go to the East Coast.
Your dad and I will barely be able to afford in-state tuition.
There are loans,
Your brother,
scholarships.
your very smart brother, he can't even find a job.
He and Shelley work. They have
They're
jobs.
bad at the grocery store. That is not a career, and they went to Berkeley. Your father's company is laying off people right and left. Did you even know that? No, of course you don't, because you don't think about anybody but yourself. An immaculate heart was already a luxury.
Immaculate heart. You wanted that, not me.
Miguel saw someone knifed in front of him at Sakai. Is that what you want? So you're telling me that you want to see somebody knifed
He
right in front of
barely saw that. I want to go where culture is, like
How many
New York,
people are gonna race and
or at
just
least
snob?
Connecticut or New Hampshire, where writers live in the
Get into
woods.
those schools anyway.
Mom,
Can't even pass your driver's test.
because you wouldn't let me practice
The way
enough.
that you work, or the way that you don't work, you're not even worth state tuition, Christine.
My name is Ladybird.
Well, actually, it's not, and it's ridiculous.
Call me
Your name
Ladybird
is
like you
Christine.
said you would.
You should just go to City College. You know, with your work ethic, just go to City College and then to jail, and then back to City College, and then maybe you'd learn to pull yourself up and not expect everybody to do everything.
Have we ever been in that moment? Real talk for a second. Have you ever been in that moment when you're in the car with your parents or with your child and you wish to be anywhere that's not there? I remember when I was in high school, jumping out of the car like that felt like a very real possibility at some points where I was like, we're only going 25. It wouldn't hurt that bad. In the next scene, actually literally right after that, the next shot is a pink cast, and it zooms out and it says "F you, Mom" on the cast, right? And it's her cast. But that kind of sets up the story of this relationship, and it's one of a parental-child relationship. And so this morning, what we want to do is we want to unpack some advice, and we're going to look from two perspectives. First of all, what do I do with my ladybird? Right? If you're a parent and you have a child who is either rebellious or individual who you're at odds with constantly, you can't seem to figure out or can't seem to connect with, you're trying to figure out who they are while they're trying to figure out who they are, and you're like, geez Louise, I don't get you. So that's the first one. And then the second one is, what if I am the ladybird? What if I'm the one who's causing the pain? What if I'm the one who's rebellious, who's jumping out of the car, metaphorically speaking? And it may not even have to be that dramatic. See, some of us have strained relationships with our parents in general, and in that, we turn into the ladybird. Well, 2,000 years ago, Paul wrote a letter to the church in Ephesus, and we're going to unpack that now. So you got about Ephesians 6. We're going to start at verse 1, and if not, I'll be generous, we'll put it on the screen. It says this: "Children, obey your parents because you belong to the Lord, for this is the right thing to do. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise." It's simple, and yet it's so hard because that word drives me nuts sometimes. Obey. Obey. Last week we talked about marriage relationships, and in Colossians chapter 3, verse 18, I think it was, it said, "Wives, submit to your husbands." Now the root word submit and obey is similar, but they're not the same. See, submission was an equal person saying, I give you the control seat. That is not what this is saying. The word obey is, you're a child, they are your parent, follow their instructions. All right, and I know that's tough for some of us to do. It's so simple to say, but it's tough for some of us to do. If you're a ladybird or not, this is honestly some of the hardest advice. Obey your parents. It was funny, last night, Titus was in bed snuggling Natalie. He's been a little sick and a little defiant and a little frustrating at bedtime. And so he was in bed with her, and she's like singing to him, rubbing his back. And then he gets out of bed, and Natalie's like, "Hey, Ty, come back to bed." And he looks at her and he's like, "No, I don't want to." Now, he's 2 years old, and he's got that kind of vibe going on. And some of us, we're still that 2-year-old inside. We're like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. See, here's my thing. I think that the parent-child relationship is not just when you're young. It's not just when you're in junior high or high school or just after high school. I think that parent-child relationship doesn't change until marriage happens. Right? Because at marriage, if you're a dude, you're told to leave and cleave, right? Leave your father and mother and cleave to your wife. That is your new family. If you're a girl, you're under your parents, and it's the same thing. Then you submit that choice to your husband, right? Not that women are inferior. I need to say that over and over again because I want you to know I believe it. that parent-child dynamic, that's when it changes, is at marriage. I don't care if you've moved out. I don't care if you are financially independent. I respected my parents' authority in my life until the day I got married, and then I said, all right, Mom and Dad, I still love you, and I'm still going to go to you, I'm still going to listen to you, but you're not the authority figure in my life any longer. I know that's hard to hear, and some of us are like, I can't wait till I'm 18 and I'm legally free. That's terrible. Honor your father and mother. Verse 3, check this out. If you honor your father and mother, things will go well for you, and you will live a long life on the earth. Honor your father and mother. The Bible says two things here. It says obey and honor. And I think sometimes we get this word honor, we get it wrong. For me, honor is less about action and more about posture. It's less about action and more about posture. See, I can stand here and honor my wife all I want, but unless I've postured her to the place of honor in my life, then my actions don't mean anything. If you're here and you're a child still under the authority of your parents, I mean child in that way, not child as in a kid. Honor your parents. Put them in a place of respect. Posture yourselves in humility. Obey and honor. Well, then the question obviously has to be asked, what if my parents are ladybirds? That's a hard one. That's a hard one. What if my parents aren't loving me the way they're supposed to love me? What if they're not looking out for my best interests? What if they don't deserve honor and obedience? See, your job is not to judge whether or not they deserve it, but to do it anyway. Obey and honor. God can use them. Pray for them. Be bold, loving, and especially humble. I cannot stress that last one enough. Humble, 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 humble. Humility. This last week, I had a really hard conversation with a young man. He quit his job in a very abrupt way. He left opportunity. He left a chance to have a future, really, in this area. And as I was meeting with him, I talked to him. I was like, "Hey, dude, what's going on?" And when it came down to it, he was puffing his chest. He was puffing it out, beating it. It's like, they were doing this, and they weren't doing this, and I felt this way, and I. And I'm like, you're missing it, bro. You gotta walk this out humbly. Right now, you're coming across prideful, and all that does is make everyone around you bristle. Honor, it's a posture. Yes, you might be right. Yes, they are probably being unreasonable in some way. It doesn't matter. Walk in humility. What if they're ladybirds? What about this? What if they're bad examples? This is great. Because they are. Let's just be real here. Parents, we can be real about this. We can be honest. We are bad examples. In fact, all of the time, my kids expose my hypocrisy. I'm like, hey, Hadley, you gotta be more generous with your sister. Oh, I gotta be more generous. Hey, kids, you gotta be respectful with your words. Oh, shoot, I'm not super respectful with my words. All the time they point out my own hypocrisy. What if your parents are bad examples? Good. I'm glad you see that. I'm glad you see that. I'm glad you can acknowledge that. It doesn't change things. Obey and honor. Actually, one of my favorite books, and I say books, but I only read the summary because I am a cheater at reading, I guess. But the book is called Leading from the Second Chair. And it's your stereotypical crappy leadership book. Except this one is coming from the perspective of not the head honcho, but you're the person underneath, right? And how you lead in that position. And it's really cool because sometimes we get the idea of leadership backwards. We think leadership is the person is in control and they're telling everyone what to do. If I'm a leader, I'm telling everyone what to do. And even when I was in high school, I thought that. In college, it's only recently that's really changed in my mind. But this book is saying that leading from the second chair means you're actually leading up. You're the person underneath, and yet you're leading the person above. And I would challenge you, if your parents are a bad example, lead them. You be the example. Maybe not pridefully, hopefully not pridefully, but start living out what you know should be lived out. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be difficult. And you have to obey, and you have to honor. Man, maybe I should grab my kids so they can hear this part too. You have to continue to obey and honor. All right, let's move on to the next verse. You can skip a couple slides here. Ephesians 6:4. Back one more. Yes, fathers and mothers, parents, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Here's a question for you. What provokes? What provokes? See, we talked about the kids for a second. Now we're talking to the parents. What provokes your kids, parents? As you lead them, as you teach them, correct them, what provokes them to anger? See, I know for a fact that Hillel, my oldest daughter, she's 6, and she hates it. Hates it when I tease her. But not like a little tease, like when I continue on. I know that. And yet sometimes I will continue to tease her. It drives her mad. She's like, Dad, are you teasing? I'm like, no, not at all. Dad, I know you're teasing. No, I'm not. I'm being serious. We're never having snacks again. Dad, are you teasing? No. Right? I keep going. And that's a silly example. I understand that. But yet, sometimes parents, we see what provokes our kids, and yet, in the heat of the moment, we continue to do what provokes our kids. And it drives them crazy, and we know it, and yet we continue to do it. Like this mom in that clip, right? She's like, hey, you're not even worth state tuition right now. Can you imagine saying that to your kids? Can you imagine hearing that from your parents? And then she's like, you should just go to state college and then to prison, or community college and then to prison, and then back to community college. She's totally provoking her kid. What provokes? Some of the things that provoke kids in general are our children, our students. Inconsistent discipline, too harsh of discipline, no discipline, lecturing without discussion, broken promises, a lack of structure, a lack of care, a lack of love, a lack of involving them in what's going on. See, I have 10 years of youth ministry experience, which means I have 10 years of giving really bad parenting advice to parents. Because naturally, when you work with students, you also work with their parents. But recently I got it right for once, all right? I'm really proud of myself, and at the same time, I'm like, don't get cocky, Josiah, because you don't have teenagers yet. It was a mom and her son. They came to me, and they were having a rough go at it. Just awful. And I sat down with him, and I'm like, all right, what's going on? And we talked, and eventually the teenager was like, I just want to be involved. I want to be involved. When I get in trouble, I feel like you're just lecturing me, you're mad at me, and you're yelling at me. Have a discussion. I want to be involved. And then she would rashly say, all right, I'm taking away everything forever. And he's like, well, no, I'm not okay with that. It's like, all right, well, what would be fitting to you? He's like, if I sneak out, I lose everything for a week. I'm like, Mom, you agree? She's like, yeah. Okay, what happens if you do it again? He's like, all right, 2 weeks. The second time, 2 weeks. That makes sense. And then they kept going, and finally the mom and the son were on the same page, and they were saying, yeah, we can move forward with this. Involve them. Especially as they get older, involve them. See, sometimes with my second daughter, she's 4, and she has more energy than the son. And she'll be sitting there bouncing, and I'm like, hey, Hadley, sit still and focus on me. and I try and tell her what to do and how to do it. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But instead, if we have a discussion about it, I'm like, hey, Hats, how do you think your sister is feeling right there? Probably not good. Yeah, probably not. You slapped her in the face. How would you feel? Really not good. Oh, how should we do that different next time? Maybe not slap her, Dad. Yeah, maybe not slap her. Involve your child. And I know, again, this is kind of simple, but at the same time, it doesn't change. See, when I was a high schooler, if my parents sat down and lectured me, I'd tune them out in 3 seconds. Yeah, totally. I'm so sorry, of course. I'll do it different next time. What did I say? I have no idea. I have no idea. Totally stonewalling, but giving the, Instead, if it's a discussion, if you involve them, as your kids get older, they want to be included in the process. So don't provoke. The second thing, parents, check this out. Second part, verse 4b. That's what I'm trying to say. Rather, bring them up with the discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord. What is discipline from the Lord? What is instruction from the Lord? It's not human wisdom. Let me say that. It's not human wisdom. See, if you are raising your kids according to the values and according to what society and culture is leading us in, home will not be very loving. Especially, we talked about it a couple times now. There's a lot of brokenness in the world right now. I heard a stat this week that shocked me about the number of mass shootings in 2018. It's been astronomical, and we don't even hear about it because it's only the major ones, like what happened in Florida, that make the news. It is awful. Things are going wrong. And here's the deal. Discipline and instruction from the Lord means being the parent. See, sometimes we take one of two approaches. One, we try and be too much of a friend. We're like, my kid just needs a friend right now. Let me tell you something. Your teenager, your child, your elementary schooler does not need another friend. They need a mom and dad. Your junior high and high schooler does not need you to come up alongside them and say, oh yeah, I can fit in with all the cool stuff. They need you to be their parent. On the other hand, some of us like to take the other approach. I am just the authoritarian. That's not going to work either. They jump out of the car. Hopefully not. Actually, I don't know if anyone's ever had that before, but that would be extreme. We take one of two approaches. Discipline and instruction from the Lord means being loving, being present, being there, being consistent, and being the parent. And ultimately, we cannot lead, we cannot instruct, we cannot discipline, we cannot help them to follow Jesus and live a loving life unless we are doing that ourselves. See, one of the hardest things for me when I would counsel young men about their addiction to pornography is like, all right, where did this come from? And they're like, well, I see my dad do it. I actually had this conversation. This was a few years back with a young man. He was just saying, yeah, recently I fell back into pornography. Dude. All right, let's talk it through. Let's walk this out. He was like, well, I was doing great. Great, no issues. And then I came downstairs, walked into the office, and my dad turned off his computer really quick. And I saw what was on the screen. He said the next day, he was tempted and he fell into the trap. Parents, discipline and instruction from the Lord means you're living out what it is you're trying to teach. Unless you are living it, they will never experience it. At least if they do, it's not because of you. One of the things about preaching that's really tough is that you can't take people where you haven't been yourself. You can't take people where you haven't been yourself. If you're not experiencing grace and love in your daily life, then you cannot take people there. Parents, if you are not experiencing a relationship with Jesus in your daily life, you will never be able to show your kids what it looks like, and they will absolutely see through it. You can guarantee that that young man would discredit everything his father said moving forward. Dad, you're just a hypocrite. You're a liar. You cannot take your children where you haven't been. If you want to raise them up to be loving and gracious and forgiving, living open-handedly, then you have to be those things. All right, so naturally the question then comes, what do I do with my ladybird? And we're going to watch a couple more clips here. First of all, we're watching 2 more clips. The first one is the mom, the family, they're dropping Ladybird off at the airport. She's going to school in New York. And to this point in the movie, the relationship has suffered. Ladybird lied about where she was from to all of her friends, and she eventually her parents found out. They were really hurt. Her mom was really angry. And so the first clip is going to be them dropping her off. And then the second one is she's in New York. And then she woke up in the ER because she was on a drunken binger. And it's how she comes back to her parents. And so let's check these 2 clips out, and then we'll close.
Thank you for driving.
You're welcome.
You're not coming.
You can't walk up to the gates anymore anyway.
Yeah, but I'm going to college.
Well, Dad will walk you to security. Parking's too expensive here.
It's okay. She'll be back.
McPherson family, please leave a message. Thank you.
Hi, Mom and Dad. It's me, Christine. It's the name you gave me. It's a good one. Dad, this is more for Mom. Hey, Mom. Did you feel emotional the first time that you drove in Sacramento? I did, and I wanted to tell you, but we weren't really talking when it happened. All those Bens I've known my whole life, and stores, and the whole thing. But I wanted to tell you, I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
In Luke 19, Jesus told a story about a young man who came to his father and said, Dad, I want my inheritance now. Basically telling Dad, I wish you were dead so that I could have my money. I could live my own life. I could go find culture. I could go be a ladybird. The Bible says he went and squandered that money. Alcohol, prostitutes, living a broken life. And then a famine came into the land. He had spent all his money. Famine came into the land and he was going hungry. He was working at a farm and feeding pigs their slop. And he looked at the food and said, I'm so hungry I can eat that. And Jesus, as he's telling this story, he says, and then the young man realized that my dad's servants don't go hungry. So he makes the decision to go home, and he says, what I'll say to my dad is, I don't deserve to be your son anymore, and I know you'll never forgive me, but instead take me on as a servant. So he makes his way home. And it goes to the parent's perspective, and the dad is waiting for his son on the front porch, sitting there, after having sent his son off with half of his wealth. Knowing he's going to squander it, knowing he's going to waste it. He's just sitting there waiting. Jesus says, while the boy was still a long way off, the dad saw him and ran. He ran for his son. He gave him a big hug. Said, I love you, buddy. Then he took off his coat, a symbol of his identity. This is my wealth. He gave him a ring, the signet ring, saying, you're still my son. You're still in this family. And then he threw a big old party for the boy. See, what do you do with your ladybird? First of all, if you're a parent in this situation, when your ladybird comes home, you love them. You give them the forgiveness. You say, I love you. I've been waiting for you. Yes, I let you run. But I haven't stopped waiting for you to come home. You run for them when you see that time coming. You don't hold it over them. What if you're the ladybird? It's time to come home. Here's the deal. Sometimes we don't come home. We're running. We're rebellious. And we don't come home because we're scared of the reaction. We're scared of the reaction from our parents. We're scared of the reaction from our siblings. We're scared of the reaction from our God. And Jesus not only shows us parents what it's supposed to be like when our child comes home, but he says, God is that dad who is running home for us, running after us. Parents, love them well. Kids, if you are running And kids, this references all of us. All of us are children. All of us. I don't care if you're 15 or if you're 55 or if you're 65 or 75. You are a kid in God's eyes, and He is running after you. What do I do if I'm the ladybird? Come home. And today we want to have space. We're going to go a few minutes long, and you're okay with that, I'm telling you. Because we want to have space. Some of you have a ladybird that you are praying for, and we want to pray with you. I want to pray with you. I'll be standing right over there. I'll pray with you. If you've got a child who is running, let's pray. But I can tell you that most of my prayers are going to be concentrated on you, parent, that you would love them, that you would pursue them well, that you wouldn't leave them, but that you would let them go. Because the tighter you cling on to something, the harder it wants to rip away. Second thing, if you are the prodigal, if you're the ladybird, if you're the one living in rebellion, come home. As we respond in worship, we are going to take communion. Jacob is going to tell us when that is coming in this song. But we're singing a song, Good, Good Father. How fitting is that? Because He is good. Because He is pursuing us. He is running after us. He wants a relationship with us. And we have to start there. And as we take communion, what we're saying is, Jesus, your body was crushed, your blood was shed for my redemption, for my forgiveness, that I could come home. And this morning, it is time for you to come home. So we're going to respond in that way. And again, we have people in the back who want to pray with you. I want to pray with you. If you've been running and away from home for a long time, it's time to stop running. Find the forgiveness and acceptance in His arms. Jesus, I thank you for your grace. I thank you that you would pursue us, that you would run after us when we did not deserve it. When instead we ran. When instead we keep running. You are a good, good Father. Lord, I pray for the ladybirds, the prodigals, the runners, the rebels, the ones we know and the ones that we are. Oh, we have to give it up. We have to surrender it to you. And so this morning we ask for the strength to let go and come home. Because you're there, and you're running after us. Jesus, we love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. Why don't you stand and respond with us this morning?
You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am, it's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am. You have been so, so good to me. Even when I felt no word, when I felt no word, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. So we say, don't be overwhelming, never empty, reckless love of God. Lord, it chases me down, my heart still heart. So claim that today, sing. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me, no wall. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Sing again. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down. Go on. No shadow, there's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, madness of oh, it chases me, and I still am found. These are my yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, love that never fails, your love that calls us child, your love that tells us we belong, your love that reminds us that there's nothing that you would let stand between us. And you're continuing to show us what love looks like. Reveal more and more of that in our relationships as we go about our week. Speak to us. Let us model the greatest picture of love that you've shown. Let us learn to be more like the Father in the prodigal son story, to extend grace. And let us also learn how we need to be like the Son, to let go, to lay down our shame and receive the love that you have for us no matter where we come from. So we thank you for that identity and promise. And in Jesus' name we pray and receive that together. Amen. Amen. Would you go about your week in love and grace, living that out, experiencing your identity? Thank you. We'll see you next week, all right? Have a good one.